Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone, and welcome to the new leadership team term on April 1st, 2017. I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is specifically for leadership teams as we start our leadership team series of webinars. Whether you're brand new to the role just in the past couple of days, or whether you're continuing for a second 6-month term and just looking for a refresher, what we're going to be talking about today is the chapter goals for leadership teams. And B&I Connect has a way that you can record your goals, what you're looking to accomplish on the leadership team this year, and also to track those goals through the next 6 months or even the next year that you're in this position. And the best part about it is once you enter the goals into the system, we'll actually show you the results and how you're doing against the results throughout the year. So we're going to take a look at that today. Before we get started, though, just a couple of very quick housekeeping things. First of all, this is a live webinar. So if you're listening today, it's April 3rd, 2017. If you're with me today, then you have the added bonus of being able to ask questions. So anything that you might be unsure about, concerned about, have questions about, just ask as we're going along. The way to ask questions in this particular program is to type your questions into the questions panel. I'll see that question pop up on my screen and I can then answer it as we're going along. Now, these webinars, we schedule them for about 30 minutes. That's about how long it takes to go through the material. I know you guys are all really, really busy individuals and you have your businesses to run and your families and the phone calls to return and the emails, so I try to be respectful of that time and we get through the content within that 30 minutes. That said, I am always happy to stay on this webinar until every single question has been asked and answered. This is what I do all day, every day, so feel free to ask as many questions as you want, whether it's about the chapter goals or whether it's about something completely unrelated in B&I Connect. Happy to answer those questions. If you happen to be listening to this webinar in the future, that means you found one of our recordings. We do record all of these webinars and you can review them at a later time. You can find them in a couple of different places. The first place is on YouTube. We have a channel called B&I Connect Global. It's the B&I Connect Global YouTube channel. And we also have them on the support site on the live and recorded webinars section. If you click that question mark in the upper right-hand corner. All right, so why don't we get started? And by the way, I do have a handout with this one. If you look in the handouts section of the software here, you will see an Excel file. This Excel file is basically what I'm going to be showing you today. It's just an offline copy. If you prefer to work offline, you can type these into the spreadsheet at a leadership team meeting and then come back and enter them into B&I Connect later. So let's talk about the goals. Now, the goals in B&I Connect, again, it's a way to really keep track of what you're doing throughout the year, and more importantly, a way for you to kind of plan things out for the year. So let me show you what I mean by that. So let's take a look at where the chapter goals are. To get there, what you need to do is go to the operations menu. The operations, if you're new to the leadership team, to get to a lot of the other functions that you'll do throughout the year, entering POMS reports and speaker rotations and all of those things, the way to get there is to go into these menus up here along the top. You know, most of the member stuff, entering referrals and stats and things like that, are going to be on the front page, but your management stuff is going to be under these menus. So the place to do that is network is always going to be the networking components of B&I Connect. So that's going to be all the, social media type stuff, connecting with other members, testimonials, connections, things like that. So the other menus, though, that you'll access frequently are operations and reports. Reports are always read-only, whereas operations is the data entry side of B&I Connect. It's where you go to do stuff and enter stuff and put stuff into the system. So in order to enter these chapter goals, we really need to go to that operations menu. And when we get to the operations menu, you'll see a bunch of different management tools here. We can manage visitors, we can manage the meeting, we can manage memberships, and the fourth one down says manage goals. Now once we get here, we have two different options. We can view the chapter goals. So if we've already put them into the system and we wanted to go in and review them, we can review those chapter goals. I can choose a 6-month period to review. For example, I can review this next 6-month period, but I can change this date. I probably want to go back and review the last 6-month period. And here it's going to show me where I've filled in goals, and it's going to show me basically how we've been doing with those goals. But let's go ahead and take a look at how we enter these goals. We do that by clicking on Enter Chapter Goals. So when we get here, we're going to be presented with the first screen. And the first screen, we only have to do this once, really. You can update it as often as you'd like, but this first part is really a one-time deal. And what we're looking to do here is to establish the foundations of the chapter. Before we get into the details, we need to come up with the general philosophy of the chapter. And we do that by establishing two things, the long-term vision and the mission statement. So the long-term vision, when we look at goal planning in general, the long-term vision is, where do we want to get to? We know when we go on a car trip, for example, there's going to be a number of stops along the way, but we kind of have to know what that final destination is. Where are we trying to get to? That's really what this long-term vision is for our chapter. And this could be something that transcends just your leadership team. It could be a 10-year vision. So here in the Shiver region, this is my test region in Antarctica, my Burr chapter, we've decided that we want to grow the chapter to be the largest chapter in the entire continent. In addition, we wish to be the #1 chapter in closed business and referrals within a 200-mile radius. So you'll notice that with this one, you don't necessarily have to put concrete goals in. Right? You don't have to put in, well, we want to be a chapter of 53 members. That's kind of what we're going to do when we get into the details portion of this. This is more of an oversight of a goal. So that if the long-term vision is where you eventually want to get to, then the mission statement is kind of what are your guiding principles going to be in order to get there. So what's the car going to look like that takes you to that end result of your road trip there? So for us in the Burr chapter, we've decided that our mission statement is we're going to help members increase their business through a structured, positive, and professional word-of-mouth program that enables them to develop long-term, meaningful relationships with quality business professionals. All right, so those are kind of our guiding lights, if you will, to making this chapter move forward. So once we do that, then we can start entering our actual goals in. So you'll see at the top here it says start, month, and year. And essentially what we're going to do is we're going to generate a spreadsheet that we can enter the goals into here in BNI Connect. Now we can only do that in 6-month periods. And the reason for that simply is, one reason is we have 6-month terms here in BNI. Now you may stay on for additional 6-month terms and stay on in your position for a year or possibly even longer, but officially we work in 6-month increments. We also need to make sure that we're not just scrolling on an endless sheet here in BNI Connect. So you can choose any 6-month period you want to. By default, it's going to assume that you have this 6-month period already done and automatically push you to the next one, which would be October. But we can change this anytime we want to. I actually want to go back and make sure that we're setting the goals as of today in our chapter. So for the end of April through October. Once you've chosen your start month and day, go ahead and click Go. And this will essentially create that spreadsheet for you. All right, once we have this going here, you can see that we have our what we call our chapter success drivers, That's what we have in the blue bars. We have our months across the top, April, May, June, July, August, September. So this is going to take us through the next 6 months. We have our chapter success drivers in each of the blue areas. And then we have 3 other lines that we would put into each one. The first is the goal. That's going to be the actual number, the numerical goal that we're shooting for. The next thing is a mechanism. So what the mechanisms are they're things that you're going to do throughout your terms. This is kind of like you're planning out your leadership calendar for the year of different initiatives that you're going to have. Because I'll tell you what, I've been on the leadership team. By the way, I'm a member. I'm in the Wakefield chapter here in Rhode Island, and we meet on Thursdays. I've been a member for 15 years now, since 2002, and I've been on the leadership team a number of times over the years. One of the things that happens is, we take on this leadership role, and we get really, really busy. It's, taking on the additional responsibilities, plus we have our own lives and our own jobs, and, chamber stuff and volunteer stuff and church stuff and whatever else you might be doing, that it's hard to keep track of all the things that you want to do. For example, you may say, hey, you know what, our chapter is going to have a visitor day. We're going to do a visitors day in let's say in June. Well, it takes like 2 months to ramp up to that, to do the whole process. So, you tell yourself, we're going to have it in June, we're going to have it in June, and then all of a sudden, 6 weeks before, you're supposed to announce it to the group, and, oh, shoot, we forgot to do it today. Well, don't worry about it. We'll just do it next week. And then next week happens, and, oh, we forgot again. Now, all of a sudden, that visitor's day is getting pushed off further and further, and sometimes what we find is that it doesn't happen. And really, that's what these mechanisms are for, to remind you of what you want to do during the month in order to support the various goals, the success drivers. So let's take a look at those success drivers real quick. We have attendance percentage, right? We have total number of one-to-ones. We have CEUs, or chapter education units. We have visitors. We have new memberships. We have number of members in the chapter, number of referrals, and finally, thank you for closed business. So we're going to take a look through these various success drivers and come up with some theories behind those. Before we do that, though, you do have one more choice to make before you start entering things, and that's up here at the top. We have two options when we're working with the goals, and you can only make this choice once, so do make it carefully. And that is, do we want to enter goals for the whole chapter? In other words, do we want to look at a big number, okay? Or do we want to enter goals per member, or a slightly smaller number that it will then automatically calculate out for you based on your goal number of members? Now, I'll tell you that most of the time, and most people that use this particular function, they do the goals for the whole chapter. Though again, you're welcome to do it either way. You cannot choose this per goal. This is an all or nothing switch here, if you will. All right, so why don't we start up at the top here. Let's look at attendance percentage. And in other words, how many of the chapter members are attending on a weekly basis, or not absent without a substitute. So obviously a great goal to have is to be 100%, but I'm going to be honest with you, our chapter here, the Burr chapter, we're not doing that well. It's been a hard winter, been very, very cold, so we've been hovering right around 85% or so with our attendance. And what the great thing about doing these goals is, we kind of know where we are now. So I usually use that, or pretty close to it, for the first month here. So, by the end of the month, hopefully we won't have done any worse, and we're going to shoot for an 85%. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you can proceed. You can either proceed by, just going up incrementally and seeing where you end up, or, my personal preference here is to begin with the end in mind. Again, begin with the end in mind. And for that, what I would do is jump to the end of the list and say, okay, well, in 6 months, it's reasonable to get to, maybe I think we're gonna shoot for a 5 percentage point increase. So we're gonna go from 85% to 90%. So now that I know the difference here, we have 85 to 90. Now I kind of know how much we need to increase each month. So for this, we can go 86, 87, 88, 89, 90. So we know we can increase steadily over those 6 months. Now, that is a very oversimplified way to do this. I do understand that, and there's a lot of detail-oriented people out there that would say, well, that's not really realistic, and you know what? That's true. However, you can complicate this if you want to. One thing you could do is to take the seasons in mind. For example, I know that in July and August, actually where I live here in Rhode Island, I mean, we live in a, kind of a vacation community. So that means a lot of people are coming in to go to the beach. A lot of people are taking vacations to get out of here while everybody's influxing. So we tend to kind of drop a little bit in attendance. We have a harder time with attendance during those periods. So I may want to put in here a little bit of a stagnation of our goal or a dip or something like that. You are more than welcome to really analyze this to that degree. However, this isn't the B&I policy or anything. This is my personal opinion. Try not to overcomplicate it too much to the point where you don't get anything done, right? This, the B&I thing, it's not a full-time job to most of us out there, and if we don't want to spend so much time coming up with analyzing the goals that we end up doing nothing, because you could put in 10 hours trying to figure this out, and then you're like, oh well, we didn't do it anyway. You get hung up on certain points. So don't get frozen up on it. It's better to have something in there than nothing. And you know what? You can always go back, by the way, and change these. So we are not going to, submit it and then lock them up for you and not allow you to change them. No, this is a proactive tool for you to use in your chapter. So feel free to go back. You set the goals too low, go back and make them bigger. You set the goals too high, go back and make them a little bit more realistic, but that's completely up to you. All right, so let's look at the mechanisms now. So we have our numerical goals, and what are the mechanisms? So again, the mechanisms are the things that you're going to do to support that goal. So, maybe one thing that we're going to do this month is we're going to announce to the chapter what our attendance goals are, right? No good working on your goals in a vacuum. Let's get the chapter's buy-in and get them to help us out with it. And maybe one thing that we're going to do this is, make sure we are taking good attendance. Right? Maybe next month, something we're going to concentrate on is we're going to concentrate on making sure that the VP is sending accountability letters. Right? Maybe another thing that we're going to do this month is we're going to do an educational moment. I abbreviate that EM for educational moment on why it is important to be at the meeting. Right? And what we can do is we can fill out these mechanisms for the year so that we have some ideas, and it reminds us, so we can, rather than, oh yeah, you know what, shoot, I forgot I was going to do that last week, to, well, why don't we review this really quickly before we have our chapter meetings and at our monthly leadership meetings in order to make sure that we're staying on track. Now, if you are unsure, you're drawing a complete blank, staring at a white piece of paper here, one thing that you can do is click on this. It's called the Chapter Goal Guide up here in the upper right-hand corner. And when I click on this, this will give you some possible mechanisms. This by no means is an exhaustive list, and you don't have to use these. But if you're stuck, if you're looking for some ideas, these are some good ideas. So, some things that you could do here is, accurate tracking by the VP. We can make sure that we are sending out accountability letters, importance of why we're being there, play the B&I game, bring your sub day. So these are all things that you can use, and maybe we can, the mentoring program. So that sounds like a good one. I'm going to go ahead and copy this by highlighting it and doing Control-C, and then you can actually just paste it in where you'd like it. Right, so as easy as that. Let's take a look at some of these other ones now. I actually, you don't have to go in order, by the way, and I actually recommend that you don't go in order. I actually recommend that the next thing you do is you skip down to probably the number one thing that you're trying to define for your chapter, and that is, how big or how many members do we want our chapter to have, right? So for this one, again, I like to begin with the end in mind. And I know that right now we have 20 members in our group. We really want to grow our chapter, but we're only at 20 members right now. And you know what? A good goal would be to get to 30 members over the next 6 months. That would just be absolutely amazing. It's a good stretch goal for us to have. So again, now that I know where I'm starting, I know where we're finishing, I know that we can do the math. I think that's 2 per month, so 22, 24, not 274, 24, 26, 28, and that brings us to 30. Now, once again, you may already know you're going to do some initiatives, like a visitor's day where you may get a larger number of visitors in one shot. You can reanalyze this at any time, but again, I like to start simple at least and get stuff in there. So we have here our numbers, and of course we can have our mechanisms. As I said, maybe we want to be doing a visitor's day in September. September is an awesome time to do visitors days in a lot of areas because summertime is winding down or over, kids are back in school, people are ready to get back to business and not taking vacations at that point. And we have a couple of months before the winter holidays start up. So we're going to do a visitor's day here in September, but that also means that we have to announce the visitor day. We have to prep the visitor's day. So we can work backwards with some of these things as well. And maybe we want to make sure during this we're concentrating on online registrations through BNI Connect. So again, different mechanisms that you can do to use this. Remember that you have the chapter goal guide up at the top as well that you can always look at. While we're down here at the bottom though, you'll notice that there is a button here. It says save. I highly recommend that you hit save every now and again. The save button will save you if you end up walking away, or let's say that you're actually putting these in while having a leadership team discussion. BNI Connect has a 30-minute timeout. That means that if you don't do any activity or wiggle the mouse or click on something here in BNI Connect, it will time you out of the system. It will log you out and you will lose everything that you hadn't saved yet. So please make sure that you click that save button every now and again so that you don't lose your stuff. All right, so now that we know the number of members, right, I'm going to work my way back up the list here. We know the number of members, so that means we know how many new members we need to support that goal, right? Pretty straightforward. So if we're going to go from 20 to 22 to 24, that means we need about 2 new members per month, right? Well, sort of. One thing that you do have to keep in mind when you're looking at the new members statistic is that every chapter out there, we have attrition. It's just a natural course of any membership organization. We will lose members. It just happens. Now, a lot of times those members leave for good reasons. They might be getting transferred. They might be having a promotion. They might be having a kid. They might be moving out of state. They might be changing jobs, whatever it might be. People do leave BNI. Now, on average, this is just an average. You have to kind of analyze this for your own chapter, but on average, most chapters lose approximately a member per month, or about 12 per year. So we kind of have to factor that in. We need to maintain that loss, but also grow on it. So really what we need is more than 2. We kind of need 2 plus that 1 of attrition. So we really need 3 members per month in order to have that growth of 2 members that we're looking for. So I would recommend always doing a +1 on whatever your goal is for number of members. Right, so if we keep moving up here, the next thing we have is visitors, because that's where new members come from, right? They have to come in, they have to visit a chapter and submit an application. So we can put that in as well. So now that we know how many new members we need, we know how many visitors that we need to get, right? So we'll need at least 3, of course, but More than that, what you're going to need to figure out, you can do this by looking at the traffic lights report if you want to in BNI Connect, or just kind of, ballpark this number based on your experience in your chapter. But approximately, how many of your visitors submit an application? Is it 1 in every 2 visitors? Is it 1 in every 3 visitors? Is it 1 in every 4 visitors? Right? How many, what percentage of visitors would you say submits that application? So now, my chapter, we about 1 in every 4 or so end up submitting an application. So to me, that means that we're going to need, on average, about 4 times as many visitors as we need new members. So that's going to be about 12 visitors a month in order to grow by 3 people. Now, once again, you may be able to count on visitors days. Like, I know that in September we're going to have this visitors day, and we're planning on having like 40 visitors that day, and we may get 8 new applications. You can go back and redo that, but I'm going to start simple here. And again, we have different things that we can do to support that, like the visitors day that we have here. So this visitor day actually is going to support this goal of new memberships. It's also going to support this goal of visitors. We may want to have some other things like we're going to invite for the trade sphere. Each month we're going to do a different sphere. So invite for trades, we're going to invite for events, invite for technology. So we can do different things in order to assist with that particular initiative. So I'm going to continue going up here, and the next things that we have, so we have a couple of things. We have number of one-to-ones, CEUs, and referrals. Now, these ones, to me, are actually pretty easy because we subscribe to a theory that we call the power of 1. And that means that for all of our members, we're really, really, really trying that they bring 1 of each on a weekly basis. We're shooting for 1 one-to-one, 1 referral, and 1 CEU each and every week, right? So that is our built-in ingrained goal for our chapter. So that means for each of these, like one-to-ones, or I can even go down here if I want to start down here, number of referrals. Well, we're going to have 20 members in the chapter, and we're going to calculate that out based on 4 weeks per month. So we're looking to get 80 referrals this month, and then we're going to add 2 more members. So we want to bring that up to 88, then 96, then 104, then 112, and then 120, right? So we're going to increase our goals as we increase the number of members in our chapter. But the great part is that is going to be the same for CEUs, 80, 88, 96, 104, 104, 104, 112, and 120, and the same thing for one-to-ones. And of course, we have the various mechanisms for those. One great one for increasing activity in your chapter is to do things like the BNI game. So the BNI game is an awesome thing where you split the chapter into groups and you kind of compete against each other for points. All these different things you do, the one-to-ones, the CEUs, all that count as a certain number of points. So that's a great way to do that. That usually lasts about 6 to 8 weeks. So I can maybe do this over the summer in order to, break up the summer doldrums a little bit there. Right, and then if we scroll down, the last thing we have here is thank you for closed business. Well, we know that we want to be over $1 million chapter. For that, we're going to have to submit about $100,000 in thank you for closed business per month. So 100,000. And we're going to click save. And that's all there is to entering those. I highly recommend that you have a leadership team meeting, that you download that spreadsheet that I gave you, that you discuss this over the spreadsheet, and you fill that out with the notes. Then one person can go back and enter these goals in for the chapter. And as I said, once you have these in, now we can go back to the operations menu and we can view our chapter goals. Right? And as soon as you get those goals in, it will start keeping track of them for you. Now, here's what I'm going to do. Now, we are at the bottom of the hour, but I just very quickly, I want to show you a real chapter's goals. Because, again, I just put in kind of a bunch of joke goals there. But there's this one region down in Florida. It's the Tampa region in Florida. Every single one of the chapters does this. They are one of the top regions in the country. So I'm just going to randomly choose a chapter here and take a look at their goals for the past 6 months and how they did. And let's see what we have here. So here we go. This was their goal sheet for the past 6 months. So this is the BNI Outlook to Success, their long-term vision to become the one premier choice for businesses looking to expand their business by serving as an example as one accountable team in our referrals, our education, our attendance, and our ethical standards. Their mission statement, 2.1 by 10.1 with 5.1. One team, one chapter, one more every time. So that's pretty inspirational. So here we have they're looking at 100% goal for attendance. How did they do? 92%, 97%, 95, 95, 95, 95. They did pretty well towards their goal of 100%. And what are they doing to support that? Blind date one-to-ones. That's the first I've heard of that. That sounds pretty cool. A family feud game, the 222 challenge, the education moment on visibility. So let's see what their membership looks like. So their goal was to get to 57 members, which it looks like they lowered that goal a little bit to get to 48 members. And they started out at 38 members, but they got up to 42 members. That's not bad. They had an increase of over 10%. I'd still say they didn't hit their goal, but they still did pretty well. So this is the type of stuff you can do when you start entering your goals into the system. And I would be, if you have any questions whatsoever, I'd like to open this up for questions now. Just a reminder, while you're thinking of any last minute questions, again, if you have to leave right away, I know we're at the bottom of the hour. Thank you guys so much for spending some time with me today and learning a little bit more about the goals. Again, happy to answer any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, compliments, complaints. Just put them into that questions panel and I'd be happy to answer those. Reminder that this is part of a series of webinars, and you can find that series by checking out the calendar. You can find the calendar by going to your regional website and looking at the event calendar and registering from there, or you can always find them on the support site as well. Our very next webinar is going to be tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about the leadership team tools and reports. We're going to take a deep dive into BNI Connect and look at all the stuff that leadership teams have access to. We're going to go through the visitor process and how to enter POMs and how to do the mentoring program and how to do the speaker rotation and all that stuff, as well as a number of the reports in the system. Then we're going to talk about renewals on Thursday. And then next week, we will talk about web pages. And after that, we're going to start our member series of webinars after that and go through the system. So, all right, do we have any questions at all? It doesn't look like I have any questions in there. All right, if there's no additional questions, I'm just going to say thank you guys so very much for being a part of this today, and I look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. A good referral for me is to please let your other chapter members know about these webinars and let them know how to register for them. In the meantime, I hope to see you tomorrow, and have an absolutely wonderful day. Happy connecting.